All right, you ready? Yep. Okay, good morning. I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander. On September 18th, Assemblymember Carroll, Assemblymember Mataines, Assemblymember Simone, another dozen elected officials, and another 70 New Yorkers were arrested here at 26 Federal Plaza. We were upstairs on the 10th floor demanding entry to the detention facility where ICE is holding our neighbors in cruel and inhumane conditions. Another 70 New Yorkers were outside the loading dock seeking to stop ICE from deporting and detaining people into even crueler conditions all around the country. On Tuesday, we had our hearing at 500 Pearl Street in federal court on that arrest, and we spoke with some of you after it about what we are doing to continue to demand justice here and transparency to what's happening to our neighbors. And what occurred to us there was that we were getting due process, that we had the opportunity to go before the courts and have the due process of law. But right here at 26 Federal Plaza, our neighbors still do not have the due process of law. They also show up for their hearings at the appointed dates that they have on their notices to appear, and yet masked ICE agents presenting no reason for the arrest or detention, failing to give a warrant, masked, not even giving their names, grab them and abduct them. And so what we thought was, after our getting some due process, we needed to come back here and join court watchers in this building, continuing to call attention to the violations of law that are taking place right before our eyes. And so that's why we're back here today. We'll be heading into 26 Federal Plaza to participate in court watching. Now, many New Yorkers have been doing that. We've been so heartened in recent months by how many people from labor unions, from community organizations, from immigrant rights organizations, and just New Yorkers who care about their neighbors and the rule of law have been showing up here to participate in court watching. Unfortunately, last night we learned from reporting in The Guardian that the FBI has infiltrated a signal chat used by court watchers simply to know what's on the docket in the cases in this building, to identify where ICE agents are, and while engaging in constitutionally protected, nonviolent, legal activity, the FBI, in a throwback to the days of J. Edgar Hoover, is infiltrating and surveilling nonviolent, legal, constitutionally protected political activity. And I have to tell you, I am outraged by it. Part of why they do that is to intimidate people. And we had planned to do this together before we learned that, because we thought it was important to keep showing up in court. But boy, after learning that the FBI is infiltrating the court watch signal chats, calling people violent extremists when the extremists are the ones who are conducting the abductions, the folks who are engaged in peaceful, lawful, constitutionally protected activity are all of us and the court watchers in that building. It's even more reason to show up back here and say, we're not going to be intimidated by the FBI. Even though the Justice Department under Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem is becoming a rogue and lawless agency, we are going to continue to insist on the rule of law. So that's why we're here today, and I'm proud to be doing it with this set of elected officials who are joining neighbors in showing up in these critical times. So we're going to have the folks who are up here speak, and then a few more might join us, and then we'll take some questions after. We're going to do it in order of both arrival and needing to leave to get to their next meetings. So first up is Assemblymember Tony Simone.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Assemblymember Tony Simone from the West Side. Look, the moment we're in is unprecedented. They've militarized a secret police force by this White House administration to go after our fellow immigrant New Yorkers, and we won't stand for it. They've allocated over $70 billion for the secret police force. We're here because 2 months ago, we wanted to see the conditions in 26 Federal Plaza. That's our right as elected officials. That's our responsibility towards our constituents. I have constituents calling me, just because of the color of their skin, they're scared to go to work and simply live in our democracy, and that is wrong. Look, And now, as Controller Lander has mentioned, we have them surveilling us. Secret police will do what secret police do. And that is un-American. We cannot stand for it. We're here to do a court watch. Civil disobedience is the American way. We're not fearful. I know they're trying to make us fearful. They're trying to tell us what we can or cannot do in our democracy, but we have a lesson for them that they should learn, listen loud and clearly. We're not going away. New Yorkers are going to rise up. I have a message to my Republican colleagues and my more moderate friends who tend to say, be careful what you say about ICE. Look, we're not saying we're against law enforcement or people committing crimes, but these innocent immigrants, our fellow New Yorkers, like my Latina, my mom, and my cousins, some who are undocumented, have a right to be in this country. Seeking asylum is not a crime. They're allowed to seek the American dream. And look, we don't know what it's about. It's a white supremacy oozing out of this administration. They're actually allowing and increasing immigration for Afrikaners who are known racists with criminal backgrounds, many. But yet they're going after brown and black immigrants simply from where they come from and how they look like. And that is un-American. And we're going to continue to do court watching. We're doing actions in my district tomorrow, and I know all my colleagues have been doing this with immigration right groups to tell you what your rights are, because it is un-American what's happening in this building. We wanted to see the conditions of our fellow New Yorkers, and they wouldn't allow us to do it, so we were arrested. And now many of us have pled with ACDs, and I know the controller is going to trial. He's very brave, and we commend him for that. But we're going to continue to fight back. I have legislation, the MELT Act, to unmask ICE. When secret police wear masks, we lose our democracy. We need to hold them accountable. There's even people imitating them with masks, committing crimes. And there are many ICE officers. I have a message to them. Look, right now you may be getting away with this, but if you're breaking the law, going after legal immigrants and citizens, one day you'll be held accountable. So be careful what you're doing to American citizens and legal immigrants. And look, I want to say one last thing. My mom should not cry to me at night telling me she's afraid to live in her nation. She is a citizen of this country who immigrated from Peru, who got her citizenship. She should not be fearful for my cousins who own a small business simply because this White House, a white supremacist, is illegally going after immigrants. And we're going to fight back. New York's going to fight back. Be careful. I have a message for Tom Homan, or whatever you say his name, that New Yorkers are not going to take your bullshit. We're going to fight back, and we're going to grow in number. And I ask my colleagues across the aisle, you should be for due process and the American way as well. The American people are watching you. Don't tread on us.
Buenas tardes a todos. Soy asambleísta Marcela Mitaine. Soy la primera inmigrante indígena en la legislatura estatal. Estamos aquí regresando después del arresto del 18 de septiembre, donde venimos específicamente para conseguir acceso al piso 10, donde están aguardando nuestros vecinos en condiciones que no son agradables, que son inhumanas. Y no vamos a terminar. Estamos aquí nuevamente porque sabemos que aquí es donde tenemos que estar presente, especialmente cuando estamos descubriendo que el gobierno está espiando a personas que están haciendo todo dentro de su derecho. Las cortes son públicas y cualquier persona tiene derecho a entrar y a observar. Y lo que estamos observando no es correcto, está mal y es ilegal. Vamos a seguir viniendo, porque es importante hacer recordar que el pueblo está sufriendo. Mis vecinos están con miedo, no están yendo a trabajar, no están mandando a los niños a la escuela, los negocios están sufriendo, están perdiendo sus trabajadores, están perdiendo los clientes, pero lo que más me parte el alma es saber que los niños están viendo y están observando todo lo que está pasando y están siendo traumados. Los inmigrantes nuevos que han llegado están siendo traumados. Lo que han vivido aquí por muchos años y declaran que esta es su hogar, están traumatizados. Entonces estamos aquí para decir ya basta con el abuso.
Sí.
No nos vamos a ir, vamos a seguir, vamos a... Queremos decirle también al Border Czar que piensa que él simplemente puede venir y hacer lo que se le da la gana. Este es un recordatorio que nosotros somos neoyorquinos y somos fuertes. Y no vamos a permitir que sigan abusando del pueblo de esta manera. Gracias.
Thank you, Marcella. Good morning. I'm Assemblymember Robert Carroll. Sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. That's what we were trying to do on September 18th, is bring sunlight into this opaque process that is destroying lives and destroying our legal system from within. Let's be clear. What the Trump administration is doing in this building and so many buildings around the country is degrading our justice system by flouting due process and the semblance that we understand as law. It also is immoral and racist. And the latest information about the FBI secretly tapping phones to find out what protected speech, to listen in on protected political speech, harkens back not just to J. Edgar Hoover, but the Stasi in East Germany and police states throughout the world. We do not want this to happen in our country. I do not believe there are Americans who want to have federal law enforcement spying surreptitiously on their neighbors. This must stop. This is immoral. It is illegal. I am glad to be here with my colleagues, and we need to continue to show up and make it clear to this administration and any future administration that we will not go gently into the night. We will fight back, we will stand up for our neighbors, and we will make sure that we protect the rule of law. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby.
Peace and blessing, love and light to everybody. Thank you to the comptroller for bringing us all together. Thank you to all my colleagues here who have put their bodies on the line. You know, if we go back in history, whether it's McCarthyism, whether it's civil rights, other authoritarian, other dictating regimes across the world, during that time, people said that there was exaggerations about what was going on, that it's impossible that the FBI and the government were spying or were trying to divide people, were trying to sow distrust. And people would say if you just kept silent, if you just went along, everything would be okay. But we know each time that is just not the case, and people were not exaggerating. People were right on point. And so we should not be surprised that a simple-minded president who was bent on authoritarianism has turned institutions that are supposed to be geared toward justice once again onto people who are doing the best they can to actually make this country live up to what it says it's supposed to be, not what it's actually doing at the moment. We have all the evidence. We have all the evidence that we need right now, that this president, that the MAGA movement, that these justice departments are all based on white supremacist thought and influenced by neo-Nazi policies. That is just the case. And the way that is bearing out behind me is cruel, it's immoral, and actually it's still illegal. They haven't changed the laws fully yet. So it's actually still illegal what is happening. People are not getting due process. They're being held in makeshift jails illegally. I'm sure it's brought up, we saw a video where they have crossed the line, kicking in the doors of people, putting guns to babies' heads. That is what is happening. This was never about criminal activity and never about keeping people safe. This was always about sowing chaos, sowing distrust and fear, and otherizing a population. The hallmarks of authoritarianism and the hallmarks of dictatorship. What this president wants Just yesterday when this report is coming out, the president, in speaking of democratic, duly elected Democrat leadership, that it is punishable by death for them to tell military operatives, which is legal, that they should not obey this unlawful orders, which is actually legal. This is the context that we are in. So I just want to join in my colleagues in saying, now is the time. The stuff you have read in history is happening now.
That's right.
And what we need elected officials and others to do is to stand up. What has got us through those times are people standing up and making sure that everyone sees what is happening. In the civil rights movement, one of the turning points was when on television, people saw what was happening to nonviolent protesters. So what we are doing right here is exactly what was said, trying to put some sunshine on what is happening behind these walls and across this city and unfortunately across this country. Donald Trump and the MAGA movement will not win, but the way they lose is by people having the courage to stand up. And those of us that have some privilege, who are elected, who can take some more risks, we have to do it. Silence will not protect you, it will not protect your family, it will not protect your community. What will help us is people doing what they can with what they have, where they are. I was in the home of someone in Bensonhurst whose family member was duped. A phone call was made to her thinking she was going somewhere friendly. She stepped out of her house and was kidnapped immediately. Being in that house was so eerie, telling people that unfortunately they cannot leave their house right now because someone may kidnap them. Trying to figure out how we get food to them because they won't be able to buy food. Having to tell them they probably cannot go to work. This is where we are at. And these are not criminals. These are just New Yorkers trying to do the best they can. And by the way, being in this country without documents is not a criminal offense. It is a civil one.
That's right.
And by the way, most of the people that we're talking about are actually seeking asylum. And by the way, many of them have court cases that are trying to move their cases forward. So we are asking New Yorkers and Americans, do not allow this regime to allow your biases and fears to override your intelligence. What is happening here is very, very dangerous, and no one is safe. So please, join us, join whomever, do whatever you can, court watch, pray, come, bear witness, sing a song with us, but we all have to step up because we are in very, very dangerous times. This is not an exaggeration. I do not know what else people will have to see to understand what is happening right now. To our immigrant communities, to all of our communities under siege, you have people who love you, who are standing with you. And thankfully, on January 1st, you will finally have a mayor who's going to show some leadership for this city.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jumaane. Well said.
Good morning. My name is Claire Valdez. I'm an assembly member representing the 37th District in Queens. Over the last few months, I've spent a lot of time visiting high schools and other public schools in my district to talk to principals about the things that they need. And I always ask how they are dealing with ICE, with the threat of deportations in their school districts. And it is beyond heartbreaking to hear these dedicated educators talk about having their students taken away from their classrooms, to hear about students that are going to work because their parents are afraid to leave their house, about mixed status households electing to self-deport because they are so afraid. We don't have time to be heartbroken, though. There are innumerable stories that we will never hear about people quietly leaving because they are too afraid to stay. And it's our responsibility as elected officials to be the ones who stand up and fight for the ones who are voiceless right now, whose stories will never be told. We were here a few months ago demanding to see the conditions here at 26 Federal Plaza, where we know our constituents have been held without due process, without access to food, to adequate water, to medicine, for an unspecified period of time before being whisked away to deportation sites across the country. We were afforded our due process a few days ago when we got our summons. So many people have been robbed of exactly that right in this moment.
That's right.
We won't stand for it. We've been organizing Know Your Rights trainings, bystander trainings. We've been encouraging people to come to Court Watch. Behind us, we saw just a moment ago, folks lining up, following the law, coming to their court appointments. And we're asking people who have the privilege, the resources, the time to come and stand with them. The border czar said months ago that their job is made harder when people know their rights. Disgusting, first of all. But that's exactly our responsibility in this moment, is to protect our neighbors, to lock arms with them, to stand in solidarity, because what this administration is doing to the most vulnerable is a test case for what they will do to every single worker and person in this country if we don't stand up against it. So I'm proud to be here with so many of my colleagues. I'm proud to continue organizing against this fascist administration. We need as many people as possible to find the courage within themselves to do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Assemblymember Steve Raga, representing Queens. I'm happy to join here with our colleagues here to re-emphasize and assert our commitment to making sure that our neighbors, our immigrant communities aren't just taken in broad daylight and kidnapped and continuing this ridiculous fascist process here. This is what we need. This is a community coming together, New Yorkers coming together to fight for other New Yorkers. Just this process, we're court watching is so needed because we're shedding light into a process that needs more transparency, into agencies, into entities that should be doing the right thing. But as our job, our responsibility, we make sure that they're doing that. Someone got to make sure it's happening, because we have, every day when we talk to our constituents, we hear stories of the most heinous things happening to our immigrant families. Just yesterday, I spoke to a PTA president in my district who had it's a special needs school, and was ripped apart from the arms of their mom. This is not what we're supposed to be hearing, especially during the holiday season, let alone ever here in the city of New York. And processes like these that need consistent transparency, elected officials, just the community come out and let them know that we are watching, let them know that we're not going to stand for this, and let them know that we will continue to be pushing against this regime, this administration that thinks so less of not just immigrant New Yorkers, but New Yorkers. So thank you, and happy to stand with our colleagues as always.
Thank you to the other elected officials. Our final speaker, in many ways, is our most important. The New York Immigration Coalition is who represents the groups on the ground, representing, working with, organizing, providing services to immigrant New Yorkers in neighborhoods all across the city. They were a part of the action that we planned on September 18th. They've been a central part of the court watching activities, and especially the Know Your Rights activities in these court buildings. And as the activity moves from the courts out into the streets and neighborhoods, as we are increasingly seeing across the city, the New York Immigration Coalition and their members are making sure that New Yorkers know their rights, know what to do if ICE agents show up on the ground, how to film, how to stand up. And so I'm delighted that we'll be closed out today by Weni Chin from the New York Immigration Coalition.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Weni Chin, and I'm with the New York Immigration Coalition. In the past few months, we have seen and heard the atrocities, the injustice, the violence against our communities, against immigrant New Yorkers and all New Yorkers alike. But at the same time, I have been able to bear witness to the resilience, the solidarity, the humanity, the care, and the kindness of everyday New Yorkers. I am seeing New Yorkers going out to canvass in their own communities, to patrol to make sure that streets are safe, to provide connection and education around their rights, And I know in this moment, it is more important now than ever that we continue to be seen and heard and show up for our neighbors. And I know that in this moment, it is not easy. I want to take a moment to speak directly to my fellow New Yorkers. I know this moment comes with a lot of fear, a lot of unknown, but it is in these moments where we must stand strong. I want to ask everyone to be proactive, not just being proactive in protecting your neighbors, but be proactive in preparing for the worst scenarios for yourself. I want to ask immigrant New Yorkers to do a few things. One, make sure you are establishing your emergency contacts. Make sure you have a plan for in case the worst happens. Two, please gather all of your important documents, make digital copies and physical copies that can be readily accessible. Three, if I can ask you to make a financial plan for yourself and prepare for your child care plan for your family and loved ones. Now is the time for us to be vigilant, to be proactive in protecting ourselves and protecting our neighbors. And in this moment, I just want to say, no one bullies New York. We will stand together, and we will stand together strong and firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And just to remind you how many New Yorkers Wendy is talking to with that Know Your Rights message. I mean, out of the 8+ million New Yorkers, 40%, over 3 million, are immigrants, are born somewhere else. 50% of New Yorkers, over 4 million New Yorkers, live in mixed status households, including 1 million children. This is the future of New York City that's on the line. That's why we've been in this building over and over again. That's why we're organizing out in our neighborhoods. That's why we participated in civil disobedience on September 18th. And that is why we are back here again today. We'll take your questions. Yeah, I mean, this is outrageous, and it's exactly what we're afraid of. You have to be able to go to the hospital when you're sick. Maybe you have a communicable disease. Maybe you have a life-threatening illness. And if people are afraid to go to the hospital because ICE agents are going to use it to abduct you, several of my colleagues spoke about schools. Parents need to be able to safely send their kids to school without fear. If you witness a crime, you need to be able to report it to the police. When we're turning courts and hospitals into abduction traps, that is a sign of a sick society, and that is what Donald Trump is doing to us.
You have a direct message to say that the FBI director about what
Yeah, you're not J. Edgar Hoover, and we're not gonna back down. We are participating in constitutionally protected, legal, nonviolent activities. Surveilling political activity is a violation of the Constitution. We will not be intimidated by it, and we will expect accountability for it.
What do you expect the outcome of today's meeting between the mayor-elect and President Trump?
I mean, look, like as Jumaane said, I think all of us here have been extremely, like what Eric Adams has done by failing New Yorkers, by making a deal with Trump, by selling out his immigrant neighbors is appalling. And it is going to be so good on January 1st to have a mayor who is himself an immigrant New Yorker and who has made clear over and over and over again that he is going to have the backs of all New Yorkers, including our immigrant neighbors. And there's so many ways to do that by making sure legal resources are provided to help people have their rights protected here. So, I'm glad he's down there today. As he's said, where there's opportunities to work on affordability, if the president wants to provide some resources for universal child care or affordable housing, instead of stripping them away from us, they still owe us that $80 million Elon Musk took. But one thing I know for sure is that Mayor-elect Mamdani is going to make clear that New Yorkers have the backs of our immigrant neighbors, that we're angry about FBI surveillance, and that we're not letting go of our neighbors' hands. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that. Yeah.
So,
Do you
it was-
expect him to get out without being arrested? Out of the White House?
I-
And then be waiting for
I mean, I don't expect him to be arrested. I also know that Donald Trump is not particularly intelligent, so I think I'm proud that Zohran Mamdani is the person who's going in there and not Eric Adams, because I feel like Zohran Mamdani is going there with New York City residents on his mind, not how best to serve himself, and that's what I'm happy about. But to some of the previous questions, I wanted to make sure we saw how dangerous this is. We saw in the news a sitting member of the NYPD accused of using ICE to get back at a woman who spurned them. The family that I was with, we believe it was the father of her child that called ICE to dupe her and get her kidnapped and threatened to do that with the rest of the family. This is what happens when you have an authoritarian regime. It actually makes everyone unsafe. People are using the threat of ICE to harm people if they feel hurt or spurned, to divide up families. Those families, it's unimaginable. As we said, you're afraid to go to school, to go to work, to go to the hospital. The fact that an NYPD officer is even thought to have done this is insane. And the second part I wanted to say was J. Edgar Hoover didn't win. The civil rights leaders won. Although these folks are trying to take us back, we are going to win again. We are more resilient than them. This is tough times, it is, but they will not win. And I hope Donald Trump understands who New Yorkers are. He should be, because we kicked them out. But we're still here, and just like history, we are going to prevail like the folks who came before us.
And I want to add one. Oh, go ahead, Bud.
I was just going to look, I think very clearly Mayor-elect Mamdani is showing that you need to fight fire with fire. You need to fight transparently, and I think he's leading the way for Democrats nationally and right here locally to say, I'll go right into the lion's den. I'm happy to talk to you, and I'm happy to show why our ideas, our values are better, and I expect that he's going to be successful today, and I think we need to follow his lead and continue to push back openly and often against this administration.
One thing I just want to add is that on the signal chat surveillance is that while the investigation, the surveillance is reportedly conducted by the FBI, it appears that the NYPD was aware of the operation through a joint task force with the FBI, and that appears to me to be a violation of the Hanshu Consent Decree. The NYPD is not allowed to participate in the surveillance of political activity. The NYPD has indicated that it is part of a counterterrorism operation, but I have some very serious questions because nothing that is happening in this building looks like that, and calling people violent or extremists or terrorists for participating in constitutionally protected nonviolent activity would be a violation of the Hanshu Consent Decree. So there are questions we need answered from the FBI, and we are not going to let the FBI surveil us unlawfully, and there are questions we need answered from the NYPD as well.